Hello, everyone, once again, and welcome to A Simple Word. This is Father Simeon Gallagher, and I am very happy to be with you once again, especially because we're so close to Christmas. This is being done in anticipation of the fourth Sunday of Advent, which in this year, oddly enough, is also Christmas Eve. So I'm sure that your bishops have told you that you have to go to church now, both on Sunday and on Monday, to fulfill the holy day of obligation. But I'm quite happy to be with you. The Gospel is Luke's version of the Annunciation, a beautiful passage, not quite as elaborate as some of the other ones, but nonetheless quite concise and beautiful to the point. And I suppose it would be expected of me to say something in this little preparation homily for the coming weekend about the Blessed Mother, since it is the Annunciation. We can never have enough. We can never have enough Marian feast days and Marian remembrances and reminders in our liturgy. And thanks be to God, the liturgy of the Church helps us to remember the importance of Mary throughout the course of the year. I'm pretty sure there's not a month that doesn't go by when there isn't at least one feast in honor of Mary, if not several feasts. So it would be expected, I suppose, for me to say something, and I would be happy to do that. But if you don't mind, in my few minutes with you for this preparation homily, I'd like to concentrate on the second chapter of the Gospel. That first passage, the passage for this coming weekend, is taken from the first chapter, but this one is from the second chapter of Luke, and it is the announcement by the angels of the glory of God come to earth. I zero in on that because my favorite Christmas hymn, not my Advent hymn, my Christmas hymn, is "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear." I've always appreciated this, and in doing a little bit of background research, especially to share a few ideas with you this morning, I have come to discover that that particular carol, Christmas carol or Christmas hymn, has been altered in a number of different ways down since it was written in 1847, if I'm not mistaken. A man that by the name of Edmund Sears, who was a Unitarian minister in Wayland, Massachusetts, which is a little bit west of the city of Boston, he wrote that. And it was first published in 1847. You can check me on my dates, but I think that might be accurate. And I enjoy this particular hymn for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is it is not actually mentioning in any way, shape, or form Bethlehem and the birth of Jesus, etc., as much as the coming of the angels announcing peace on earth and glad tidings to people of goodwill. I'm sure that you're familiar with it, and if you don't mind, I don't always remember. It came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to all, from heaven's all gracious King, the world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing. Interestingly enough, it's very appropriate because it was written shortly after the Mexican-American War. And there was war also brewing in Europe. And of course, this was written in 1847. And within a decade, even less than a decade, in 1861, the American Civil War began. where we saw the horrors, even here in our own country. Gettysburg was the most bloody battle of all the battles of the Civil War, and on a matter of 3 days, 50,000 people lost their lives on the fields around Gettysburg, many of them brothers, cousins, relatives who had taken positions on opposite sides of all the political divides of the 19th century. And it's out of that kind of context that this Edmund Sears, who was the author of this, began to write. And upon looking at his life, I discovered that he was going through a lot of personal difficulties. I zero in on that because the similarities of the late 19th century to what we're dealing with now in 21st century postmodern America is not at all that different. Wars are going on in various parts of the world, some of them in absolutely barbaric and tragic fashions. No respect for life, the elimination of even infants by the barbarism, the hatred, the vile behavior that often accompanies war in all of its circumstances. I think we would all agree that this is a hymn that speaks into a weary, weary world. And that little phrase is even mentioned. A weary, weary world that needs to hear the angels sing, heralds announcing peace, a peace that is, it seems at times, way beyond the realization, possibilities of the year that we are in. But we trust that the Prince of Peace, who always is ultimately triumphant, will bring about the kind of peace that the world needs, but not just this global unrest and this global lack of peace. But I think we're dealing with internal war and an internal combustion in our own lives. When we light the candle this coming, the fourth of the four candles, we are lighting the realization that even though our own lives are difficult and complex, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you were a celebrant sitting in the sanctuary and celebrating the midnight mass, to look across the congregation and to see so many people nodding off, people whose faces are marked and etched with anxiety and worry. They have been rushing and rushing to get things done. And we're all caught up in this frantic and hectic kind of moment in our human history, our national history, and obviously in global history. And this beautiful carol speaks into the realization of that being the case in 1847 when he wrote this, because if you go to the hymnals, like the one that we have here in the house, Breaking Bread, I was quite surprised to find out that what is published in the hymnals is only 4 verses, when in reality there are 5 verses, and that they have removed in many of the publications that 5th verse where it talks about life's crushing load, where forms, you and I, are bending low. We're toiling along the climbing way with painful steps, and we look for new and golden hours, and we're asking, oh God, send your angels to announce to us peace on earth and goodwill to all people, and give us hope in the face of so much defeatism, so much pessimism, so much darkness. And when we light the final candle on the Advent wreath, the one that's in the center, that is usually a white candle, we are, of course, announcing that Jesus is the light of the world. And with his arrival comes a peace that is beyond all human comprehension. That doesn't mean that we have to sit back and let this just happen. You and I, who have been given the grace of our baptism, are challenged to become agents of transformation and agents of change, agents where we present the gospel message of hope and joy into this dark and weary world. So go to your hymnals or open up your computers and look at the history behind this beautiful hymn. It's not at all unlike our own time in history. And again, with all due respect to the Blessed Mother, I certainly don't want to ever neglect her. I have a great devotion to her, given to me by my parents, especially Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. And Mary is the Queen of Peace. But Jesus brings peace to a weary, tired, and defeated world. And we can lose hope. We pray that the angels and their song will be heard throughout the surface of the world, but also in the surface of our own geographies, our personal interior terrains, so that we can, through this Prince of Peace, have peace in our minds, our hearts, and in our lives. The friars send along with me, greeting you today, all best wishes for a happy Christmas, and we're praying for you, and we expect you, hopefully, to be doing the same for us as well. God bless you, and happy Christmas.